Mr. Chair, whenever you are ready.
Okay. I'm going to call the Planning Board and Zoning Commission meeting for November 12th, 2025 to order. Can I have a roll call, Jeremy?
Roberts.
Hold on just a minute. Somebody here has
Audio on. Check your computer and mute it if possible.
give me a second.
I'm not really into tech now. That's how loud
Hi.
my husband's TV is.
What's that?
How loud my husband's TV is.
Didn't like that.
No, it looks like the Aurora.
Yeah,
Now it looks what?
like the
No, it looks
Aurora.
like the Aurora.
Oh, there we go.
Can we start over,
Sorry
Jeremy?
about Jeremy. No, your call. If you want to pick up or.
Yeah, we'll start over. Roberts. Here. Gray.
Yep.
Tupin.
Yep.
Eccles, Bell. Boise.
Here,
I think I got your name right that time.
Yeah.
Conley.
Yes.
D. Benedetto.
Here. All right, minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for October 22nd, 2025?
I move to approve the minutes of October 2nd, 2025.
I second it.
Is there any discussion, corrections, or?
Good to me.
All right, hearing none, have roll call, Jeremy?
Roberts.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Tupin. Foisey.
Yes,
Conley.
Yes.
D. Benedetto.
Yes. All right, communications from the board and council, urban renewal agency update. The last meeting, most of the discussion had to do with the meeting for December 2nd that will be with the planning board and city council. And purpose of that meeting is to review the reports from Kansas State University. And that will be held here in the City Hall office. Also, there's a presentation from Angela on a CDG grant for study on needs. And she went over the different objectives for that study. And then I guess the other thing that we discussed was right now I'm the planning board rep to the agency. We discussed shifting that role to Harry. And as I recall, I think when the planning board made the appointment I think it was with a motion from this planning board, making that assignment, so at some point, maybe.
No, I think they did that last night. So they made him their rep to you guys.
But I think there was also a motion from the planning board to approve that or accept that. So that, as I recall from the last time, right?
Yeah, I think that's the way it should be. They don't get to appoint, we do.
No, actually. So think of it as the county. The county appoints who their rep is to the planning board, you don't.
Okay.
Or council appoints who their rep is to the planning board.
I'm just referring to how I got appointed. It was a planning board recommendation to the So I assume that we would,
We could
planning
double
board
up.
would want to concur with that. So maybe we can do that on the agenda, either maybe in the January meeting, since, if that,
That's fine.
any questions on, related to urban renewal district?
I don't know whether or not I'll be there or not on either representing the city council or the planning board. I have, cataract surgery that morning and they're light correcting lenses, so I don't know how much light I can sit in.
Okay,
So, I probably won't know till the last minute. And I take it we're not gonna be Zooming?
I think there's gonna be a
Yeah,
Zoom
it'll be normal
option.
public
There'll
meeting.
be a Zoom option.
Okay. I can do that, I will.
Report, Marty's not here, so I guess, a city council update.
Yeah, covered a lot of stuff going on, actually. Specifically, one thing that is worth noting for planning board is, there may be more conversation around changing the, zoning for the Brewery Hill lot that was recently acquired, and then, 'cause now we're gonna have the hole in the middle. That's gonna need to get resurveyed, but from there, that might be something that we wanna consider when doing zoning, which I think we've already had that conversation, but, it did come up again. Another thing that we are working on, and I know I've mentioned this before as well, is a process for designating or changing use of city-owned land, and when it's planning board's position to be a part of that advisory. So just something that I'll keep you guys in light of, but I did give, did I send that to you? No, it was in the packet. So there was a little bit of a mini flow chart of our very baseline items that we're working on. So that's, in terms of planning board. The other bit that I think is worth noting is we did approve a design and development MOU at the Red Lodge Tennis Board. That is just for them, for essentially going through and doing the engineering and due diligence to figure out if we want to put in a tennis complex by Coal Miners Park. And then Sandy did bring up, should that be a conversation that needs to come to planning board first for approval or recommendation, all of those types of pieces. So just something to have on the radar, that these conversations will be coming up more and more, but as of right now, we're kind of in the baby steps.
Okay, thanks. Communication from the mayor?
I will just add on that flow chart, on kind of that process that they're working on for designated city land. Again, think of big things, whether it be tennis courts, ice rink, observatory, all those sort of things. I've asked our planner to weigh into that process as well, so he's gonna be reviewing that and probably joining, the land use at some point to figure out what's the appropriate time on that. So he's looking at that. And then the other thing to share, I guess, is, and it relates to the county, the development that was up by Waterworks Road. They had put forth an assertion, that they had a request to be on city water, and assert they were entitled to that free of charge. And we have and then they came back and said, okay, we're not pushing that anymore, but we'd sure like it if you would help us with fire, because whenever they do a subdivision, whether it's city or county, they have to, they have to provide a mechanism for fire protection. And, I talked with the planner, Public Works, fire folks, and what we basically came up with is what we're gonna do is, we've told them they can count us as their fire protection, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna basically have the equivalent of like a hookup fee for fire protection fees that can be used for like within a mile of the city. If they're putting in a subdivision in the county, rather than putting in a 50,000 gallon tank and paying that cost, they can write a check to us. And part of that thought process was, if there's a fire, that's what they're gonna do anyway, is they're gonna go fill up their trucks and the closest fire hydrant and then go do it. So we might as well get a check from them up front and have them helping to contribute to the system that they will be utilizing. And so that rate is still gonna be something that's coming forth. We haven't set that rate yet, but just kind of as an awareness. That was one that they reached out to the city because they're within I don't even know if it was within that range, and we basically said, they reached out to us for commentary, and we just offered concerns to make sure that they watch, because both wells and sewer are in proximity of our water source, and we wanted to just make sure that there's no impacts there. So,
So-
Jeremy, anything that you wanted to add to that, or did I classify that well enough?
No, I think you covered it. The only other thing to add would be they asked for city's permission essentially to access their lots from Waterworks Road. And, we gave them that permission as well, so.
Yeah, we didn't have any concerns with that.
So the county has property in Waterworks Road?
No, it's not the county that owns it, it's in the county.
Oh,
So it's a subdivision within the county. But the county checks, they have their checklist just like we do. And one of them is if it's a subdivision, they have to have a fire plan. And most places, what they do is they'll build a 50,000 gallon tank or something. And we said, what's that gonna cost them and how much we can charge them, and we'll still be the budget option.
so are they extending lines into the county, or how's?
No, they wanted to do that. But there is one that is there, so when the city acquired that 100 years ago, and he gave us access to our water source, they basically grandfathered a cabin that's up there, so it has access, and it also has water that it does not pay for. But when they thought that entitled them to turn it into a subdivision, and everybody in the subdivision got free water, we said, not unless the judge says so. And then they said, okay, you're right, let's not go down that path. But there was some bluffing going on back and forth a little bit, so I felt very comfortable with the city's position, and ultimately, I think they decided that we were standing on awfully strong ground.
Yeah, I would think one of the things you're gonna wanna consider is capacity.
Yeah, and the capacity was not the concern, but again, the free water was an issue, and we're just getting out of the habit of providing city services outside of city boundaries.
Okay.
But the water was, the fire was the one thing that made sense to figure out, and again, rather than just addressing that one, we said, what is it we can do here that we can do for any other subdivisions that come up within a mile, that they're gonna come to us and ask the same request? So we're just putting a system in place that's scalable and repeatable for that as well.
Yeah, that part, so if a subdivision is within 1 mile of the city, the city's gonna provide water for fire protection to that subdivision?
We're gonna give them the right to use water for fire hydrants, because that's what the fire department's gonna do anyway.
So it's not extending the service?
No, we're not extending the lines. When they come to refill the trucks, they can come into town and use the closest fire hydrant. In that case, they happen to have a fire hydrant right there, which is where the request came from. But we also thought that the request would come for places where they don't have it. We won't be, except they are allowed to tap in to get it, to check that box for the county.
And then they pay for that service?
It's a one-time fee up front, is what it'll be. It's buying into the infrastructure. The equivalent of an impact fee, but that's not what it's gonna be called. It's gonna be called a fire access.
So they'll be charged per gallon?
No, like a $5,000 per lot when you build it, and then you're done. I think that's, there's nothing else for me. A reminder that I will not be at the meeting on the 2nd. Jody is gonna be here, and she can be running tech for that one.
Okay.
I think we've got you all covered for the meeting that I will miss.
All right, thanks. Under new business, we had discussion about canceling the November 26th and the December 24th, planning meetings. Maybe November 26th, I believe, is the day before Thanksgiving.
Yes, sorry.
And, of course, December 24th is Christmas Eve, so
I would move to
Whackers.
cancel November 26th and December 24th meetings. Be my motion.
There's second,
Second, yes.
additional, discussion?
Who
Jeremy,
seconded?
can,
Who seconded?
Stupid.
Stupid.
Both of us,
Okay.
we thirded it too.
The two hardest ones for you to say and spell.
Roberts,
Yes.
Gray,
Yep.
Tupin? Yes, was that a yes?
That was a yes.
Okay, I didn't hear anything on my end. Boise,
Yes,
Connolly,
Yes.
and Di Benedetto.
Yes. All right, public comment on agenda items. There's nobody in the room, anybody online to comment on items on the agenda?
Angela?
I see no hands,
No.
no cameras, or
No, I'm good, thanks.
All right, moving on to business is, continue the review of our 2025 zoning regulation update. I'll turn it over to you, Jeremy.
I'm gonna take this to full screen and I will monitor, activity.
Okay, let's see. It looks like you guys, I was not at the last meeting, but it looks like you guys left off on drive-through facilities. Was there
Okay.
anything that you guys wanted to go back to, or do we want to keep moving forward at this point?
I think we covered that. I think what we discussed, if I recall correctly, is we wanted to further define what we meant by drive-through facilities in the narrative portion.
Yep, and that's kind of what I see in Greg's comments, so, so if we're good with that, we'll just start off with alcohol consumption sales as a secondary use. Looks like that is a conditional use in C3S and C4. Nope, sorry, C3N and C3S.
And I
I
think,
think we added
I think
C1.
we, it was,
Did we add C1? What do you have?
I was under the impression that we merged this together because we were struggling with, there's like 4 different places where there's alcohol sales, alcohol consumption. Like, didn't we merge some of this? Again, there was restaurant, secondary on-site, alcohol, beer, wine consumption for a restaurant, and then it's just in all of the different zones. So I thought we consolidated.
I don't know if we consolidated or recommended that they be on the, or
I mean, we
consecutively on.
could, so what I'm seeing on here right now is we got 2 of them. We got this one, and then we've got an alcohol consumption and sales one. We could combine those 2 into one. And it looks like it's permitted in C4 and conditional in C3N and C3S.
So, and then also, I think that Jeff was right in the fact that we just wanted them all together and that we were gonna come back and address it after looking at some other definitions, but, cause you'll go down here and then there's secondary on-site
yeah.
alcohol,
Yep.
wine consumption for restaurants,
2 restaurants.
2 restaurants, and then, but I know that there was the the conversation of the reason it was secondary in C3 North and C3 South, or C North and South, like, was because it would be, if it was also a part of a hotel?
That's the tertiary.
Yeah.
The problem that we're having, Jeremy, is that they're all spread out, you know? So you've got your alcohol consumption sales, then you go down the list and you've got, the restaurant. We had secondary on-site alcohol. We also had another restaurant in there. It's just really hard jumping around and looking at them all. I mean, we have alcohol consumption and sales, and then sales as a secondary use. So it's just hard to look at all of these when they're all jumbled,
Yeah, we had that conversation in that, you know, we wanted them all,
and we're still struggling.
right, because it's inconsistent too. And it just,
So like I had written that the alcohol consumption sales as a secondary use, I also had conditional in C1, C3 North and South, and permitted in C4. But then I looked down the list, not very far down, it says alcohol consumption and sales, and we didn't even discuss that. It looks like it's only permitted in C4. We don't have it as a conditional use
anywhere else.
in one north or, and north. So it's just difficult to do this.
And I think another thing that we were having a lot of issues with at the last meeting was just definitions across the board.
Mhm.
That until we have definitions made, that it's hard to place things
In the right.
in the right categories and locations. And really getting down into the nitty gritty of what's allowed, what's conditional, into, like, when going through their sections, instead of having it here, instead of having everything as conditional use, having it as a permitted use, but having rules and regulations for that within the zoning. I remember that being a conversation as well. So I think I'm having a hard time remembering where we left off.
Yeah.
So I think we covered a lot of this
We
already.
just started jumping around.
We
Yeah.
did.
We got to outdoor storage, and then
Oh,
we got into freight and distribution and warehousing, freight distribution. Then we started jumping around a lot.
Well, that was another definition issue. We weren't sure what that outdoor storage, you know,
Meant,
how we
yeah.
wanted to define that, and the propane distribution and
The
bulk
bulk
storage.
storage, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we really got into trouble there, and they're everywhere. I see gambling, we have gambling as primary on this group, and over here is gambling as tertiary. I don't know, it's just messy. What do you think, Jeff, that maybe if they would go ahead and put the like things together, that would be a start before we start trying to figure out where to put things? And then check our definitions to see if we need to, so that we know what we're doing?
Well, question, because I know that this came up when we first started this, though, that you and Al did a lot on definition, you guys did a lot of definition work
We
prior
did.
to this.
We did.
I mean, should, like, what, you know, what she's talking about is mirror 'em as we're going through it, have the definition alongside the condition, the use itself. Maybe, I think that might help, you know, clear up some of the confusion.
Yeah, that's, any thoughts, Jeremy? I guess
I mean, some of these are already defined in the definitions in your current zoning regulations. For instance, outdoor storage is defined as the keeping, stockpiling, or storing of materials in, for any reason in the out of doors. So that's the definition you currently have. I mean, the question maybe would be, do you want to change that definition? I mean, that's pretty standard definition for outdoor storage.
Would that also include storing like an RV? Or does it have to be material?
No, this is related to commercial and industrial uses. So this is storing of retail materials for sale. So for instance, like a Murdoch's that has a outdoor storage facility for lumber, gates, fencing, that sort of stuff, right? or,
Okay.
you know, some kind of a storage, you know, for area for outdoor items to be stored. Maybe it would be a rental place that has outdoor storage of equipment, like lawnmowers and excavators and tractors and that sort of thing.
And that would be covered under outdoor storage?
That would be covered under outdoor storage. This does not relate to people storing stuff on their property, personal property.
We knew that.
It's commercial.
And that, I mean, you know, so some of these definitions, I know we've talked about in length, need to be revisited. And that could be some revisions to outdoor storage, for instance, that, you know, you make it specific, that the intent of that language is it's for commercial, right? So that's commercial storage of materials or goods that are for sale, or for use by a contractor or something like that, right? You may even have a contractor facility that's a commercial building and they have an outdoor storage yard for their equipment, right?
Perfect. Yeah, pretty much that whole section is C3 North.
Yeah, we have Ace Hardware and Beartooth Market both do outdoor storage, and they're not in C3 North.
Yep. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of examples of it within town.
Yeah,
And with how it's written now, oh, he's scrolling. Let me
Sorry.
go back.
Sorry.
I was also scrolling. We're all bouncing around. It's okay. It's my fault. But I believe if I was looking at outdoor storage, yeah. It's only permitted in C3 North. But again, there's multiple locations throughout town that allow it or that have it doing it. So,
And I mean, in general, outdoor storage should be permitted in a commercial district. I mean, if you have, like you said, an Ace Hardware or some kind of a hardware store, they're going to have an outdoor storage area.
Yep.
Or they're gonna want one. Most of those types of places don't, you know, typically, you know, they typically have some sort of, even if it's like a retail store that might have a, greenhouse, they sell plants during the summer, right? That would be outdoor storage, right? So,
Yep.
I mean, those are fenced areas typically that, you know, you store stuff that, and it's secure at night and it's open during the day and, you know, that type of thing. So,
definitely, I would see it being permitted in all of our commercial areas and even park spaces for, hey, this is where we store the equipment for the baseball fields and such. I'm not sure if that would qualify the same, but it's what I think of. And then realistically, instead of having it as conditional, have it permitted and just have those rules. Because, I mean, the argument you'd want to make next would be downtown, you know, having outdoor storage, you're not putting that on the sidewalk, but also, you know, it has to be within your space and your surveyed property lines, and that's something that can be detailed in the definition with the rules and regulations around it.
well, yeah, we could develop regulations for outdoor storage and the specific use requirements that say, it doesn't even have to be a long section, but, you know, you have to have a fence, it has to be screened, you know, that sort of stuff. I mean, you could put those kinds of uses in there. You know, they're not allowed in the front. They have to be located to the side or the rear, you know, because that's pretty standard, right? For most of those facilities, they're not located in front of the building. They're typically to the side or the rear of the building. You know, we could have those kinds of standards in there.
Could you read the definition again that we have?
Outdoor storage, the keeping, stockpiling, or storing of materials for any reason in the out of doors. That definition
so-
would kind of imply personal property too, which I don't necessarily agree with, because we don't
So we could
typically
change that
regulate
I-
that.
to say the commercial keeping.
Yeah, I think the intent was of, and what we discussed last time, there is a distinction between outdoor storage for commercial business, such as the lumber yard and the two the hardware store and those kinds of things. Versus if somebody just wanted to take a vacant lot and make that into outdoor storage, I don't think we want to allow that as a permitted use without going through conditional use review. I think there's a distinction between outdoor storage for a business versus, or a commercial business, retail business versus just simply outdoor storage of a fenced yard, I think. And again, I'm thinking along the lines of what's the best use of our vacant parcels in town is gonna be primarily for either retail, commercial, or housing.
What
As
if we
opposed
move,
to-
what if we move outdoor storage to an accessory use rather than a primary use? Make it an accessory use, we could still add standards to it, but accessory means you have to have a primary use on the property first, then you have an
I like
accessory
that.
use.
How's that sound?
Yep.
That a lot.
That
Think-
makes more sense.
I think we've got agreement there, Jeremy, to,
Could we potentially have, again, kind of going into the alcohol bit and how we have 18 line items for alcohol? What if we did some of those things as accessory use as well? So if it was, because we have secondary, if it's in this space, if it's part of a hotel, if it's, yeah, like, why don't we just have primary, secondary, and then that would also, that accessory use would then work for restaurants and all of those items. I don't know, does that make sense?
Rather than calling them secondary,
Yeah.
tertiary, it's really just an accessory use.
Yeah. Unless it's literally a liquor store, and if that's the case, it's a retail store, and it's,
Primary.
yeah. I don't know, just feel like that might be a way to fix our alcohol problem, by sobering up.
would accessory uses come before the planning board, Jeremy?
No, not typically. Conditional uses would be the only thing that would come in front of the planning board. So accessory
Okay.
uses, you would want to do like we just talked about with outdoor storage, right? If you wanted to add that as an accessory use to certain districts, you would want to have very specific use standards that we could follow in reviewing those applications to make sure that they comply with that. Otherwise, you want to make it conditional if it's something that you want to review in every instance.
Well, the reason that I'm making that distinction is because under the alcohol secondary use and the gambling tertiary use, our growth policy specifically calls those out as secondary and tertiary uses within the community entrances. So we're gonna wanna keep those as conditional uses as far as the alcohol consumption and the gaming uses
That's the only tertiary use we have, isn't it?
for the gaming, yeah.
Or anywhere in our, yeah.
So, question, so just going back to this alcohol, so I have it pulled up here. I have them all lumped up into into these three right here. I moved them up together. Can we
Okay.
combine these two into one? I mean, we have this one says on-site alcohol, beer and wine consumption for a restaurant as secondary, but then we also have alcohol consumption sales as a secondary use. Seems like we could just combine this into this one and just make all alcohol consumption and sales as a secondary use and it's conditional.
Or would it,
I mean, cause you have them both conditional anyway. And one's allowed as conditional in, looks like C something.
C1,
C1, C3,
I think it's, yeah, I got these are all messed up after I copied them up, but anyway, regardless, I mean, the secondary use for both of these is a conditional use.
So it doesn't really matter whether they're secondary or not, does it? Alcohol consumption.
I think you should just change it to alcohol consumption and sales, and I would take out secondary use, in my opinion. Because it's gonna come to you as a conditional use permit anyway. And you're gonna be able to review that use every time somebody proposes it in that district.
Where is it gonna be documented when they come in and just say, I wanna build a bar? And that's their primary use, because it's conditional, but hey, I wanna do it. That's a step away from, we're only allowing it if it is a secondary use.
I think we're getting rid of the term, the secondary use.
I think
But-
that's
but I'm-
the
but my
to
con-
keep it.
Yeah, but that means somebody comes in, puts in a bar all of a sudden without having anything else there.
Well,
Because you're gonna have the same conversation on casinos in a little bit.
it's all conditional anyway.
It's one place where it's permitted for alcohol and consumption.
And
So,
sales.
and essentially what he's saying is, okay, it's a conditional use that I can have alcohol consumption and sales in C3 North. Whereas right now, how we have it written, it's the secondary use. So essentially, you have a restaurant that sells alcohol
Right.
versus I have a bar that sells alcohol.
I think,
That's the
yeah,
difference. It's like
This is
the-
what
the
this is,
secondary,
I have a bar and I sell a pizza.
yeah.
this is what I would do. I would put it,
Okay,
I would take out secondary in the table, but then down in the specific district standards, add alcohol consumption and sales section that requires in C3N and C3S that alcohol consumption and sales are a secondary use. You have to have we can define it much better in that section and basically say you have to have a primary use of the property first, and the alcohol consumption and sales has to be secondary to that.
so you get to one line here on alcohol consumptions, you see the conditionals, and then down below is where it decides what the conditionals are, among other things, it's secondary.
Basically, yeah, so then that gives staff and the planning board, basically, when that conditional use permit application comes in, we say, okay, this is allowed as conditional, we go down to that specific district and we go down to that use. And if it says it's this has to be secondary use, this is one of the requirements for a conditional use permit, right? For this use, it has to be secondary to a primary use. Then we have the teeth in that section, and it's better defined as what secondary is. I think, if that makes sense. And then we have more teeth as a planning board and a city to say, oh, hey, you clearly have to have a primary use on this property before we can allow this. And it would give the planning board teeth to deny something if somebody wanted to push it forward.
It seems to make sense. Everybody agree with that?
Yeah, just
Go ahead.
for clarity, so we're talking about C1, C3 North, and C3 South, and C4.
I had C4 is permitted.
Yeah, C4 is permitted, but
Yeah, everything else
conditional
is
in
conditional.
those other three.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
what I had.
yeah, just, in C2, no, but,
So if we take out this, we'll take out this line, right? And we'll add it to this and just take out secondary use. And then this would be conditional here. Right? So C1,
Right.
C3N, C3S is conditional use. Then alcohol consumption and sale. Well, actually, we could actually combine them all into one.
That's what I thought.
yeah.
And we could actually put this, actually, we could do this.
Mhm.
C,
Online, so.
C, C, and actually this one goes away too. So you have one line, alcohol consumption and sales, conditional use, C1, C3N, C3S, and permitted in C4. And then down in the specific district standards, we'll have a section in each one of these districts that outlines the requirements for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Love it.
Yep.
And just to clarify a little bit, I know we had the conversation of C2 in terms of, especially like north of the roundabout, potentially changing that to C3 north or C2 district. The reason I say that is just where it's conditional and where it's permitted. I feel like there was conversation of, you know, banquets and that type of thing at the new P cannery.
Yep.
And if we, I mean, not that it's permitted now, but is that something that we want to have available in that space? Because as of now, it wouldn't be, but. And I think that more so, just as we've been talking about the intention of the urban renewal district and C3 North, it makes sense to combine those lots to C3 North. Is that still something that is being considered?
Well,
We just,
that,
It would be easy enough to do.
Yeah. I mean,
adjusting the zoning line,
We have the map that's going to have to be changed anyway,
yep.
when all is said and done.
yeah. 'Cause I,
Rather than allowing all of C2 to be included, it would be better to change our zoning map.
I think so too, 'cause, the rest of C2 is really a mix of residential and commercial and,
yeah. But then I think we did also have the conversation of what if Samurai Sue's wants to sell beer? Or if the new golf shop or the, you know,
Yeah, but
Sure.
well,
wants
that's
to
a
have
good point.
beer and wine there. Because, again, in my eyes, like, you know me, I say do what you wanna do. But I think that's just worth having that conversation of if we do it, do we just include C2 for now? And then if we make that decision to get rid of C2
Yep.
or change C2, because I mean, personally, I think that we could just have all of C2 get like absorbed into C3, but I know it's a little bit of a stretch just with some of those lines, but it's a weird section.
That's the only one.
I know.
I'm not for doing C2 as a blanket. I would rather change the zoning map.
To absorb it.
Yeah, then we can seriously look at the zoning map when we're all done. Make adjustments.
so what I'm sort of hearing, Jeremy, is at least for now, maybe, add C2 as conditional with a question mark, so it reminds us to come back to that.
Are we ready to go to propane distribution and bulk storage?
Sure.
Yes.
That was one we needed definition on. Because
Yep,
We
and-
weren't sure.
And Greg prompted me for that, so I'm prepared.
Okay.
So, yeah, so the zoning doesn't have a definition for propane distribution and bulk storage. So I kind of did some research today. So in general, propane distribution facilities are for the storage and wholesale distribution, which means they're bulk propane tanks above ground or underground for filling trucks with truck filling stations, and those types of things, along with offices, all the safety stuff, things like that. Typically allowed in industrial zones, light or heavy industrial, sometimes commercial. Bulk is kind of the same thing, but actually on a higher scale. So bulk
Okay.
fuel is typically fuel like depots, larger transfer infrastructure, could be pipelines that actually bring that material in and fill tanks, and then provides wholesale distribution more out to. So this, a bulk fuel facility would likely feed a distribution facility, right? So you would have a bulk facility that would store the materials, and then a truck would come, fill up, go and, basically fill up tanks on a distribution facility that would then, take that out to the community. Let's see,
Okay.
so minor uses that we typically don't, they're basically incidental. That would be propane retail sales or cylinder exchanges, right? So where you typically have like a gas station that has a small, very small propane tank, maybe like 100, or 1,000 gallon propane tank or something out back. And that small 1,000 gallon propane tank, they use that to fill up 20-pound bottles, those types of things. So we don't
Right.
typically, those are not considered distribution, those small facilities. Those are incidental uses or accessory uses to a larger commercial
Okay.
use. So does that answer your question? Are there any other questions on that? We do need to add a definition to the back of the zoning for sure for this.
So the correct title would be propane bulk storage, or are we okay with propane distribution?
No, I
slash
think
bulk
propane
storage?
distribution and bulk storage is accurate. I think that's fine, because I think you do want to regulate distribution and bulk storage. It's propane retail sales, so we don't necessarily need to, like those small. And I think we better define this in the definitions, right? We'll develop a definition for this that'll that'll basically define what this use is and what it's not, right?
Perry?
Well, I guess I have a question for the rest of the planning board members. I mean, we have it on here right now as conditional in C3 North. We have a facility in C3 North. Do we want more facilities in C3 North?
No,
So why would we even have it on here?
because if it burns down, they're kind
Well,
of,
they're grandfathered in, so why do we even need to?
I think I think we've had this conversation a little bit last time, was just because they're grandfathered in, if they were to sell, it's no longer grandfathered in. And we had that, like, that's one thing that we asked last time, and they told us.
Jeremy, is that true, or I think
No,
it's
if-
saying.
Not true?
No, if they sell it, it's fine. The use doesn't follow the ownership, the use follows the land. So it doesn't matter who
Right.
owns the property. The use is there until it goes away. So I think in the example that was given, if it burns down, then it's no longer grandfathered in. So if it does burn down, it's no longer because anything that gets reconstructed has to be in compliance with zoning. And we have non-conforming uses sections and all sorts of stuff in our zoning, so it would have to comply with that. Those sections. So it can, like, if you took it out of here and you just didn't want it in the city, for instance, that facility can operate for as long as it's
Right.
there. At whatever point in time that it just operates as a non-conforming use. At whatever time that facility goes away, the use stops, it burns down, whatever, then whatever comes next has to comply with zoning.
here's the other question, is if they stop using it for a period of over a year, do they lose the grandfathering? For instance, if a hotel stops being a hotel and it just sits vacant for over a year, do they lose their grandfather?
That's a that one's a hard question. It's kind of a gray area. I think it depends on what the use was. And I'll use the example, you used hotel. I mean, that if a building is built as a hotel, its really only use going forward is probably as a hotel, unless somebody wants to convert it to apartments or something. Right? There's really not another use for that building, really.
Let's use the Eagle's Nest. The Eagle's Nest was a motel. It's been sitting vacant, not being used for years and years and years. If somebody buys it, can they start using it as a motel again? How's that one?
No. It's in the
I-
floodplain.
well,
But
Already
it's
there.
grandfathered in.
That's beside the point, it's.
I mean, I think I would have to look at the zoning regulations and get you a better answer on that, on how your regulations regulate non-conforming uses and starting that back up.
I think in, just in this particular instance, I think it's about the equivalent of being burnt down, honestly, so.
Well,
I don't
I know
think
that they can't
you'd have
get-
to reconstruct
They
that.
know they can't get a building permit.
Yeah.
But like the
So-
lupine looks like it's also vacant and not being used, and so that's another thing. And then you use the old hospital. Could they clean that up and use it again as a hospital? So the question is, on your grandfathering in, there has to be some limit to the length of time that it wasn't used in that use when they lose their grandfathering. Sorry, Jeremy. I can think of lots of instances.
I mean, I think some of the examples you gave are a little bit tougher because, like I said, the structure for some of those uses, like for instance, I mean, what we're talking about, propane distribution, right? They're gonna build propane tanks. Those tanks can't be used for anything else but propane, right? So
Right.
that one's, to me, it's kind of a little bit of a gray area because it's not being used, that's the only use for the property because that's what it's built for. I would like, the cleaner example is, say you have a commercial building downtown. Somebody gets a conditional use permit for a casino. That casino operates for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then it closes. It closes for a period of 1 year. That use is no longer allowed on that property, as far as I'm aware, and then they would have to come back in for a conditional use permit to get basically reauthorized to be a casino.
So it's not so much the grandfathering in, it's the conditional use permit, that if they don't use the conditional use permit for a certain period of time, then they need a new one.
Yes. Yeah, and again, it all depends on what our zoning says for uses, right? So if that hotel is in a district where we allow hotels as permitted use, then they don't have to do anything. Somebody can buy that
Right.
property and they can reestablish a hotel in there and it doesn't have to go through it just has to go through a regular process, right? If it's in a district where the use is a conditional use, then unless the regulations say otherwise, I would say they have to reestablish that use through the conditional use permit process.
I think I'm making this more difficult
So-
than it needs to be.
Jeremy, the reason I brought it up about the propane distribution, we have, AmeriGas has a facility there now, but let's say, part of what we're preparing this for is if, let's say, a business like Northern Lights is considering putting a distribution facility in Red Lodge, Montana. If we leave this as it is today, then it's a conditional use in C3 North, and so then they would have to come before the planning board and say, hey, we want to put a Northern Lights distribution facility down the street from the AmeriGas facility, because we want to get into that market too. And as it stands right now,
They can do that.
they could do that.
And we wouldn't have
We-
a leg to stand on.
We don't have a leg to stand on, right?
I think you're right. It would be better just to pull that propane distribution and storage out of our matrix. Because I don't think anybody wants to, we don't like the one we have. I don't think anybody wants another one.
Like, it kind of goes against what we're trying to do with the URD,
Right.
Well,
You know,
and
as
the
well,
community
so,
entrance. and-
yeah, in the community, so that, it's just,
Sue, you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, already have had one near catastrophe involving propane, which is another good reason not to make it easy for us to put an additional one there. And yeah, we might better get on it before it happens.
So remove it.
Mm-hmm.
John,
Yeah.
removing,
Remove it.
Sandy,
Yes, remove it.
Chelsea?
I don't know how I feel about it.
Right, yeah.
I just don't wanna, basically, I don't wanna put the owner of that business in a bad position if something were to happen.
Well, he's not unless it's gone.
Right, unless catastrophe.
I think it would go back to how that facility was originally approved. I don't think it was probably approved as a conditional use. I think it was, we're really glad to have you here.
Yeah.
It may even be.
So,
I don't.
so I'll
Maybe
just
we-
point out, that we do have a non-conforming use section of the ordinance that allows for reestablishment of a non-conforming structure, lot, or use. If it's,
And I'm good.
so if something happens to that propane facility, they could go through that process to reestablish that. There's a very specific list of requirements that they would just have to follow to reestablish a non-conforming use. So it doesn't, just because it burns down, it doesn't mean they can't
The
reestablish.
question is then, what happens if he wants to build another shop?
And I don't think you'd be able to.
He wouldn't be able to,
Well, a shop isn't.
because he's doing it out of his car right now, I mean, right? So what if he
No,
wants
there's
to,
Dave, you're talking AY.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I
But
think a
AY's not
shop,
bulk.
would be an accessory use though. So that would be, an office or a shop type, that would be an accessory use, I think. I think what we're talking
Oh.
about here is we're talking about the actual propane, like,
I didn't know
tank.
he was not recognized as a bulk.
No, he's got the 1,000-gallon tank and fills it for you.
Gotcha.
So yeah, he's not bulk. The one that is the one right next
Yeah.
door. But yeah, if Dave wanted to build a shop, even if the guy next door that is doing bulk wanted to expand on what he's doing and have additional tanks, I don't think that he'd be turned down. He's operating under that non-conforming use.
Right.
Okay.
So he'd be allowed to do that as long as he's not buying the lot next door and expanding unless he merged those lots.
It's the expansion that we're trying to fight against.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So remove it?
Yeah, no, as long as, again, my big thing is I just wanna make sure no one gets screwed in a bad situation, because there's nothing worse
It's
than,
already a bad situation.
well, more so, it's not a bad situation for them, though. It's a bad situation for us, it's a bad situation on our eyes, but realistically, that's their their business.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I'm not here to put anyone out of business.
No, they have a useful purpose. I mean,
Yeah.
they serve a lot of people in the county and it's,
Yeah, so that's my only concern, and if we have that covered in non-conforming uses, I'm happy.
I think we've,
Can I offer some staff input? I kind of like Perry's thought, because one of the things that's been pointed out before is how our zoning is kind of a byproduct of what was there. That's there, we better put that in the zoning, what's there. I think what Perry's pointing out is, okay, and that is there, but in doing so, we're also perpetuating it. So as we go through this process, let's see which of those things we don't want to perpetuate. That what's there is there, what's grandfathered is there, but they did it before just because it pre-existed. Evaluating that to see if it makes sense or not, and fix the big picture, I think is a very good point, actually. So that's kind of my thought is remembering the genesis of how it got there, but what we're discovering is all the problems that there's one there, why can't I put one in?
those are two, both are good points, and I think the other thing to think about is our growth policy is forward-looking. So it's vision and goals of what we want to see in the future, not that we want to necessarily perpetuate some of those things in the past. So I think we've got consensus, Jeremy, to remove propane distribution and bulk storage and deal with that in not, or have a better description of what we mean by, or in the non-conforming use section on how those might be grandfathered in or
Well, I
exceptions.
think we just need to add a definition for it, even though we're taking it out of the use table. I think it still benefits having a definition in the back that defines what distribution and bulk is. And then says retail is not, propane retail sales is not part of this, right? I think we need to define that so that it's clear that, the town pumps or the whoever that has a small tank in the back that fills up bottles is fine. We just don't want big distribution and bulk storage. And then the non-conforming use section already outlines how to deal with non-conforming uses, so.
I see that in our definitions, we have non-conforming use, but it's referring to a lot, not to a use. It just says non-conforming. We don't have non-conforming use, we only have a non-conforming lot, structure, or use that fails to
Yeah.
comply with all applicable standards. So that's
We have a
okay.
whole chapter 7 non-conformities that deals with non-conforming uses, structures, and lots. And what those mean, and what the requirements are for those, and then also how to reestablish any of those if something happens. So there's very specific requirements in that chapter.
And there's agreement to add those definitions, Jeremy,
Okay, yeah, I have a note, so.
and clarifying the distinction between retail propane versus the bulk propane.
I think it was the one that Brian brought in, it was a question, because it was 1,000 or 3,000.
Thousand's good.
So the amount of, how big of a tank is considered retail.
But yeah, I'm trying to think what the business case of somebody that wanted to do.
Just that.
There is a national fire prevention, I think it's 58 code that it establishes setbacks based upon the size of the propane tank.
Oh, okay.
So, and I believe for the size tanks they have at AmeriGas, you can have 2 tanks there, but it's like a 200 maximum, I think it's 250 feet setback. But, I mean, that's a big lot, so I don't think that's really an issue there. But it could be if someone else wanted to do retail, they might, put that next to somebody's house. Yeah, but that would be that'd be a fire department issue.
It'd also be a Brian Hanna issue too.
And, yeah, that would be, he would have to have that conversation.
That'd be a part of your building code.
Yep.
Okay, so next on the list is gambling. Is that where we want to go next? Looks like it's.
Yeah.
Oh, we have two gamblings. We have gamblings as primary use. I'm gonna cut this and bring it up here. All right, we have gambling as a primary use and gambling as a tertiary use. In both cases, we allow it as conditional. I guess my question is, what's a tertiary use? That a
What would the
third
issue
use? So
be?
somebody has to have 2 other uses on their property before you could allow a gambling use?
Yes, that's,
Hotel, restaurant,
That would allow town pump to have gambling machines.
oh, that says a secondary use.
No, because they sell their retail store and they sell gasoline, so the third use would be and alcohol, et cetera, but.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that would come up as extra use.
Oh, funny, Jeff, we don't have secondary.
I mean, the only reason I bring up that question is because and I don't know how you've handled it in the past. I've never really seen zoning that I've dealt with break it down that far, because how do we define first two uses to get to your third use? Like, is a tertiary use, like the first two uses have to take up 75% of the building, and then the third use can only use more than 25% of the building? You know, like, what is the metric for a tertiary use to make sure that we're complying with that?
I think that's maybe one of the things that might have to be better defined. The example in the growth policy, it's tertiary use in relationship to a hotel with a restaurant. And so the third use in that situation could be gaming. The
So my
origin of that, Jeremy, is gambling or casinos in our community entrances raised a lot of public outcry and disapproval back in the day. And so this was sort of the compromise reached that, okay, we're gonna allow gaming in community entrances. It has to be a tertiary use to a hotel or restaurant. Its primary use couldn't be as a casino or gaming establishment.
Okay. So my question is, can we do this?
That's the background.
Okay, so my question is, can we just do the same thing we just did with alcohol consumption and sales? Combine this into one line, make it conditional in these three districts, but in these two districts, we've outlined very specific requirements in which we allow them. For instance, the tertiary use, and we've specifically defined better what that means.
In conjunction with a hotel/restaurant.
Yeah, because Jeremy, you probably know the history. I think what the community doesn't want is the Lucky Lils.
In our community.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I'm just trying to see how we can simplify this a little bit better and define things more clearly so that staff and planning board, not just staff, knows when we get an application. Well, first of all, staff is first line of defense, right? So if the regulations are clearly defined and somebody comes in with a proposal or an idea, we can clearly sit down and say, oh, well, this doesn't, here's the requirements. If you meet these requirements, you can bring this forward to the planning board for a conditional use permit. If you don't, then we can't even take this forward to the planning board, right? But then it also allows the planning board very specific requirements for review of those when you get them, to make sure that they're in compliance. So I guess just like we did with alcohol up above, I would say let's take this out of here. Well, this one go away, and then we would make this conditional and this conditional, but then we would add very specific language into the district standards.
Are we,
I think that's
I'm
good.
gonna go around the table again.
Yep.
Sue, is that yes or no?
Closer than we were.
What's that?
We're closer than we were. We're closer than we were.
We're closer than we were.
Retain.
Yeah, I got you, Sue.
John?
Yes.
Sandy?
Now, I want to make sure that we just have the line as gambling, which we already know that it's secondary to alcohol in the state anyway.
Right.
We have it conditional in C3, north and south, and then we also have it conditional in C4. Is that what we're proposing?
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
That's what I have
And
on
we'll-
this line right here. So,
And we'll have a much more of a clarification in terms of what that means within each of the zones.
Yeah.
We've got agreement there, Jeremy.
Which is really
Okay.
odd. Because we've been doing this gambling thing for a long
I
time.
know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's just when we start to define it, that's when we'll really struggle.
But at least we know where.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're on to marijuana dispensary is what we have in the table.
Oh, boy.
So,
And so I think Greg had also mentioned that there were some questions on definitions for marijuana.
I think the other breakouts of marijuana, not just the dispensary, but then there's also,
edibles and,
No, it was growth versus chemistry
that's right.
versus
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
distribution.
Yeah.
There's like 7 or 8 things that were all included.
there are lots of classifications
Yep.
besides dispensary, but maybe we should only deal with dispensary at this point.
May I make a recommendation on it? That we, instead of saying just dispensary at this point, put marijuana business, and then when we go to define, as we've been talking about, that's where we say what kind of business, so then that way, it's just marijuana businesses, and then in that area, dispensary is allowed, all these other ones are disallowed, and this is why. And then you can really clearly define why those are disallowed, but if you were to change your mind and they come up with a new strain of weed that doesn't stink, and they're growing just that kind, you might be able to change that later down the road, but, or
So in
again, there's
this-
the other things, labs and that kind of stuff
Yeah.
too, to where, so just doing marijuana businesses versus dispensary, I think would cover that here, and then we define that later down.
And then make it conditional in C3 North, South, and 4.
I guess my question, so yes, so marijuana business would be more of an all-encompassing category that would include manufacturing, cultivation, testing, dispensary, distribution. Dispensary is very specific to just dispensing and selling it. And that's very specific already. So if and then you have a cultivation facility, which is another defined marijuana use. That's where they actually grow, harvest, and dry and package marijuana. And then you have a manufacturing or processing facility, and that's where they would make your edibles, and they would manufacture and do those kinds of products with it. And then you have your testing facilities. So in this particular case, if you don't want those other 3 uses within the city limits at all, then I would keep this as marijuana dispensary, and we put a definition in the back of the book. And I think you make that very, very clear in this case, that's all you want, right? I think
And
marijuana.
to add, our understanding from legal counsel is that until such a time as we rule out those others, when the voters put it in, we have to provide some functionality for all of them. Right now, we have a little bit of a loophole that's protecting us because our ordinance limits the number of businesses, and they happen to both be taken by dispensaries. But along those same lines, I would agree with keeping this as dispensary rather than just marijuana businesses. And keep in mind that this is one of those things that council has specifically asked zoning to weigh in on, because right now, marijuana dispensary is a permitted use
right.
in the core of downtown. And is that really what they wanted to do and where they want to end up at? But to expand that to marijuana businesses now means that a cultivator could be in downtown. And is that what we want to do?
And again, going back to one, we have to have some sort of outlet or structure in place within our zoning code per legal. That's why I say keep it as marijuana businesses, but in those definitions under businesses, essentially saying they are permitted in this area if it is a dispensary. These other businesses are not permitted within C4. They are conditional uses in C3 and C4, but these are the conditions that you have to meet. And likely, a lot of those items won't meet those conditions, or it could just be straight up that we don't allow. But if that's the case, then I think we should do a line item for all the above and not just have a definition in the far back. Like, and I think that it also would be useful if each of us had a better understanding of the different businesses and not just grasping at things right now either, because again, I have no issue if they're a dispensary / lab, or if they're also manufacturing baked goods, but you don't want to grow op downtown.
Well, Sam's could decide to start doing
Yeah.
marijuana, a beer, marijuana infused beer.
Marijuana beer.
So again, I think that for us to make that decision now is not reasonable, and more so, we should have a better understanding of each of those types of businesses before trying to regulate them. Because I think in all likelihood, a lot of them are not gonna be as, I don't know, of a nuisance or issue than we are making them out to be.
Well, but that's good, fair point, but right now, we have, I think, a city ordinance that limits two.
Yep.
So to even have it on here as conditional in C3 North or C3 South, and then permitted in C4, it kind of gives the impression that we're open for business if someone else is thinking of coming here. And I mean, Brian's got to look at this and go, oh, we already have two, and so, we can't have more than two.
Well, here's also the other piece of it, is we have two now, but you can also still apply and get put on a waiting list, if I am under that impression. If I believe I'm remembering that correctly, it's the same way that we have a cap on our short-term rentals.
Well, then they could,
So it
Yeah.
says that we're open for business, but if we were to hit that cap, it doesn't necessarily go away out of our zoning.
right,
And so to me, keeping it in there is fine. I would rather see that instead of having it permitted in C4, it becomes conditional.
I agree.
yeah.
That's the
That's a good
one
point.
thing.
And I'm not usually big on saying, let's make things conditional, we all know that,
Right, right.
so.
I know, I was shocked, but I didn't have to say anything.
Right.
I agree, I don't wanna make it just permitted and say, okay, because it depends on where they put it
And I
in
think,
the C4.
and that's the thing, is if we do have it permitted, I think just extremely clear definitions, and that's fine too. I would prefer to see things permitted with extremely clear definitions.
Mhm.
But at the same time, until we have a better understanding of those businesses and how they could actually operate within that space, I think that conditional use may be a good boundary for those businesses and how we can actually evaluate them. It's like, okay, well, this is going to be a problem for X, Y, and Z reasons, and so this is why you're not allowed. Again, whether that's this tank could explode and hurt downtown, or if it's you're gonna make downtown smell like a skunk. There's a bunch of different reasons not to, but there's also some reasons why not.
Anybody else have any comments?
So I changed it to
Maybe.
marijuana business and conditional in C3N, C3S, and C4. Based on the comments.
And you did it as marijuana business.
I
I just
did.
wanna make sure we're covered by legal, and that's the big reason, is that's what we were directed to do by our legal
Right.
counsel.
Be in compliance with the state law.
Yeah. That works. So that's all the only reason I'm using that language, otherwise I really don't wanna see a grow op go in next door and,
So where's the permitted up there?
not.
It's not.
What does
All
PC
conditional.
mean?
It's
We took
conditional,
out-
and that's-
We took,
Oh, it's, okay.
it's struck out. We took out P. It just, you can't see the
Okay.
line because it's P.
Unfortunately, fonts aren't working in our favor on that.
I don't remember anything about a waiting list, just as an FYI, and I was looking through the ordinance and I'm not seeing
I don't.
anything about a list or,
Also, I know that ordinance needs cleaned up too, so.
so we just did?
Well, yeah, still needs more cleanup.
Okay.
But that's a personal, that's city council problem. We'll get there eventually.
So to address what Chelsea has said, when we get to each of these zones, we'll have direction in those sections about the different types of businesses and the requirements that they need to make.
So kind of like the gambling thing,
Yeah.
just that same thing extended.
Yep, and I have a note, I have a notation over here on the side for us to do that, so.
Doesn't something have to go in front of the voters for,
And it is and it will, we didn't put it out this time because
Right.
it would have been $4,000 to ask just that
just for that,
question.
right?
Yeah.
And we felt somewhat covered because of the cap thing right now, so.
Yeah, between the cap thing and the fact that we wanted to address the other businesses within our zoning, that was one of the big reasons.
Yeah, both of those things there, but your zoning, to my understanding, and Jeremy, please correct if your understanding is different, but my understanding is until the voters have said no to certain uses, we have to provide some level of accommodation somewhere, whether that actually works into anything. It's kind of like the sexually explicit businesses. If it can't be near another sexually, or a bar, or a church, or a, you know, there's a practicality factor there that kind of gets in the way. But my understanding is our zoning has to address it at some level somewhere.
Correct.
Yes, no, Purple?
Yes, that's my understanding as well. And I mean, for an example, we just did Whitehall's zoning here a couple of years ago, and we had to address the same issue. And we just set very specific requirements that dispensaries and manufacturing both had to be an industrial district, no, not commercial, and then we put very specific use standards saying you had to be located 1,000 feet from a residential use, or well, I think it was 500 feet from a residential use or public use such as a school, public building like City Hall, those types of uses. Very specific standards for those. So, I mean, you're still allowing,
Because right now we have them over the fence. We have them next door and adjacent, so.
yeah, I mean, so you can add those very specific use standards that have those setback requirements, just like you do with adult businesses, right? Same kind of concept or idea.
I look forward to this group tackling that.
Okay, are we good with that now? Can we, let's see. Good?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Next on the list here is distribution. We have a couple of other, I see at least 2 others. I'm gonna copy them up or cut so we can see them all together.
Yeah, we have freight and warehousing.
And then this one,
Distribution, yeah.
I think those are the only 3.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, those are the only 3 I see. So, okay, so we have those together now. I think this is all kind of together, and I mean they're all saying the same thing in my mind. We don't have a definition for distribution. Freight and distribution are both the same thing. I mean, it's a facility that holds freight, like a warehouse that you would then have load trucks and distribute that, right? So I think all 3 of those in my mind go together.
Yep.
I don't know why we had it in the C4.
Yeah.
C4?
Yeah, they had one under parking garage, we have freight and distribution, only conditional use in C4. Yet further down, warehouse, freight and distribution. again, we have it in the C4. Why would we have warehousing and distribution in the downtown?
Grocery store, Ace Hardware. I guess it's not really freight and distribution.
Those are retail uses. That's not warehousing. This is storage of freight. So this would be like a UPS facility where packages come in, it's warehoused, it gets loaded on a truck, it gets distributed out, right? That's in my mind, some kind of a freight, where you're storing things and it's being distributed out. It's not.
So crazy. It's
Yeah, Crazy Creek, maybe
Crazy
C3
Creek.
North.
Are they
Sam.
freighting it? Are they warehousing?
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
C-
It's pretty cool, actually.
Maybe just C3 North and C3 South.
Kind of.
I would say north and south and leave out the C4,
Yeah.
because it
Again,
doesn't.
So we do have a definition of warehousing. A building or property where goods, merchandise, or equipment are stored for eventual distribution to retail or other establishments. Warehousing includes the storage of commodities, refrigerated items, or general merchandise. Warehousing does not include the inventory for retail purpose and is not a liquor store. So we have a pretty good definition of warehousing, which I think kind of covers all of it. So it seems to me like we could take out these
Just put
two
warehouse.
and just say warehousing / freight distribution. And
Do
then
we want?
here, and you don't want to allow it in C4. Was that what I heard?
Well,
It doesn't make sense.
the question is, again, do we want Amazon, I'm just throwing Amazon out to pick on it, but do we want Amazon to put a distribution warehouse in north or south of town? And in Crazy Creek, that's an existing use, so do we,
I think it's good job, honestly.
yeah, but
That's not the place for it, though.
where, so where would that be? You know, that's,
I think that, again, going back to not necessarily vetoing it out, but providing having restrictions on it.
no,
Sizing specifically.
I-
So what we don't want is a massive facility, but would we necessarily mind a small facility, a place like Crazy Creek? Because I don't necessarily mind seeing another thing like Crazy Creek go in somewhere. It creates jobs, it's not offensive in what they're doing. I think that, I don't see an issue.
well, we haven't defined the community entrance on that into town yet, but I think we have to also remember, though, we have Highway 78, we have 212 further north of town. I mean, we have, there's places in the county where all those types of things could go, and the question comes down to, you know, in our community, what do we want to see? And it's not, I'm not saying that to be negative about job growth and those types of things, but what really fits in the different parts of town, you know, it could be, you know, C2 could be an option, because that,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, because, again, there's a bit of that happening.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about Paul, he is doing that, like, and so, and I guess it is intended for retail, so it's a little different, but again, I think instead of, if you're going to be having freight and warehousing and distribution in some of these businesses, especially if they want to grow and scale, and I think that the matter is, instead of worrying about what they're doing between the walls, is worry about the walls look like and how they fit in.
well,
So I understand that you, like, what the goal is in terms of what we want in our community, but I think what a lot of people want in our community is the opportunity to grow our businesses to be successful.
I think, but going back to Jeremy, I think, you know, we're talking about two different things. Like what Sam's has, that's not a distribution facility. That's not the primary business.
I think I just need to read that definition.
Yeah, I think that's, we need
Yeah.
clarity there, and, because, you know, and so, if, you know, someone else was has a business and they're expanding into distribution, even Crazy Creek, if they actually still had offices here and that wasn't just a storage facility, you know, for warehousing, then you would look at it differently, so.
Yeah, I just think that, again, I'm not willing to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Just, Because I think that in terms of what we want to see within our community, that was something that came up during growth policy and downtown conversations.
Yeah, but distribution, Chelsea alone, there's lots of distribution facilities and buildings, and they don't employ anybody. They're just places that people rent to park stuff in. And that, that looks, you know, if you go along Interstate I-90, as you're heading into on the south side of I-90, there's a whole lot of warehouses and distribution facilities there. And, you know, as far as employment goes, you know, if you're a, you know, Walmart or Amazon and you have a big warehouse, that employs a bunch of people. But most of them are just places that people store stuff and then they, you know, the truck brings it in, truck brings it out. So, I mean, I think we need to have better definition and,
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
yeah.
I can agree on that as better definitions. I'm not willing to get rid of it, not at this point.
Any other thoughts about whether to, have that in our allow it as conditional use in our community entrances?
But C4, I think, will.
Jeremy, can you do size of facilities as far as square foot?
That's a good idea.
We can
Yes.
do that.
Yeah, when
Okay.
we can put a restriction on size, for sure. Yeah, when we get into the specific district standards, we can add this in there. I already put a note to do that. We could
Okay.
talk a little bit more about what those are, or what, you know, Greg and I can come up with some recommendations to start with, and then we can go from there. But yeah, I mean, you can put in whatever restrictions you want.
Including traffic like 18-wheelers and, you know, the
Yeah.
big trucks, those types of things. So I think that we're probably just gonna do conditional use in C3 North and South.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
that's what I'm showing here. Warehousing, freight distribution, conditional use, C3N and C3S.
Okay.
I think Perry raises a good point, though, again, going back to our growth policy and what is the goal and objectives for our community entrances. And, you know, a key element in that was making the entrances to Red Lodge unique, not like every other town that people drive in. And so I think as we think through this again a little bit, and we talk about how we want to define it and what kinds of restrictions we want to place on it, we need to really go back to our growth policy and look at what our goals and objectives are for our community entrances. The
Yeah, I
intent
mean, you could
being-
put specific standards on there that requires they have to be set back from the front of the property. You know, you could put landscaping requirements in there. You could, I mean, size restrictions. I mean, there's all sorts of things we could do when we get into those specific use standards.
Okay, so I guess for now, we'll leave it as conditional use and see where we end up with the kinds of conditions we want to put on it. Next, are we ready to move on?
Oh,
Yep.
please.
I have sexually oriented businesses and is next.
Everywhere.
We have
And
really
you
strict rules on where they can go.
Yeah.
And I know that we have to put them somewhere. And I think that when we did this, we did have a location for a sexually oriented business that was the right distance, and it's Berkshire Hathaway now. But
Well, now what you want
go
downtown?
tell the girls. Well, it's gotta be away from churches, and it has to be a
Yeah.
certain distance from schools and parks and all of that. And that's the only place that we came up with, okay?
Yeah,
But the municipality doesn't have to guarantee that the real estate is available.
No, we don't.
Nope, you just have to provide a spot for it. That's all you just have to say, this is where we're gonna allow it. You don't have to guarantee that there's actually a space for it to be there.
Which is
Yeah.
why it's in the C4,
But next time I walk in there, I'm gonna say, oh, I heard this was.
a sexually oriented business.
Yeah.
I
I
dare
hear
you.
this is where you can buy the toys.
I don't really propose any change to what we've got.
Okay.
I'm not hearing any other opinions, so.
I'm trying to keep my mouth shut.
So the next one is parking garage. Is that, I mean, is that something that,
That we want.
is that something that you feel like you need to regulate as a parking garage in Red Lodge?
Well, it could be 2-story, 3-story. Yeah,
You want it downtown, do you want it in C4?
Yeah, sure.
downtown.
Do you want it, well, what would you want to take away to put the parking garage in?
You know, where,
I can think of one big empty lot
I
that's
can-
gonna
Right
open
now.
up. I can think of another one that's about to open up, that's gonna be county, or is county land. I mean, there's space.
I see it in C4?
yeah, definitely.
You
Right
gotta
on
remember,
Broadway.
it's not just Main
Right
Street,
on
it's
Broadway.
I
behind
know,
Main
it's
Street.
behind Main Street. I know what you're thinking of, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's an empty lot that has been parking across from, the Roosevelt, who says that can't be multiple levels. There's an
Yeah.
empty lot where the
Well, that's not
Quonset was that
C4
came
though.
down.
That's C1.
and there's an empty lot on the backside of the body shop.
Mm-hmm.
The body shop is.
So I guess I'm just saying, I'm not saying not take it out of C4, but what you just mentioned is in C1.
Okay, so, but this
But
one over
there's
here,
other opportunities, is
Yeah.
the example.
And maybe, I don't know, that, we talked about with K-State, when they were here, that was one of the things that came up, is we need more, especially for events, we need more parking, and C3 North, that wouldn't be a horrible thing, and same with
But
the
it-
south end,
Yeah.
But it
Red Lodge
is,
Mountain could run shuttle buses.
it is a horrible thing. It's pulling people out of the walkable downtown. If you put it in C3 North and South.
Again, I
So-
think that the definition of walkable is also very different.
Yeah.
So, like, to me, I walk from C3 North to C3, like, to
Yeah.
downtown, that's normal.
I don't.
Like, and that's the thing, you might not, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not walkable. So, like, I think of Red Lodge being a mile long, plenty of people would walk that
Yeah.
whole strip. And if you had parking in C3 North, now they are walking downtown, and all of those other places in between can also get that attention too. So I think that that's actually a benefit. And same with, like, if we had it down in where he's talking about, right across from Roosevelt, one, that'd be a great boon for Roosevelt Center, and trying to get that to be a conference space, but then two, people are walking in from that side of town. I think that that is a big benefit. If it was even further down, say Crazy Creek went down today, and now that's a parking garage or a parking lot, people are walking through, they're seeing the river, checking out interpretive signs, seeing new parks, like, it's a part of the experience. So again, it's, the definition of walkable is subject, so.
Well, you also have, I mean, if you go to Fort Collins, they've got bicycle taxis.
Yep.
Boulder
Shuttle.
does it, a lot of communities do that to
Yep.
move people up and down the block, so.
Yep, and Oregon, walking trails, like if you had a nice trail system coming from C3 North or South into town, like, people would love that. And for a lot of employers, I could even see them having places for their employees now to park and having a shuttle. So again, you think about the mountain, instead of parking at the Civic Center and picking up on the bus there, they could be parking at one of these different lots and shuttling from there. You know, downtown events or rodeo or Renaissance Fair, people could be parking in these garages and running shuttles up to save away from some of the congestion on 78, so. That's,
What
yeah.
would it look like? What would a parking garage look like on our community entrance?
Probably 3 levels and have really neat artwork up in the windows. I mean, I don't know, that was something I always really enjoyed, like,
Landscaping and.
yeah, there's ways to do it well. It's just,
It's all conditional at that point.
yeah.
Yeah,
Again, like, one of my favorite things growing up in Portland, so all the parking garages, one, you have businesses on the bottom level, so you have small retail spaces or coffee shops or there's business that's happening with commerce right there. Then you have all these units going up for parking, but the cool thing is in those little slots between as it's starting to pier up, they would have local artists filling those spaces with all different types of artwork. And, you know, it's actually how we'd identify where we parked, like, oh, we're in the fish garage because all the fish are on the side of it right now. That's how we found where we were going back to. So again, there's ways to make it iconic and fun.
Well, what if you have, I guess that would, somewhere would have to define what an ancillary or tertiary use would look like. What if you had a hotel and they didn't, you know, they wanted to limit the size of their footprint, you know, the amount of land they would have to buy?
Yep.
And they only, basically, you're looking at a 2 to 3 story parking garage to accommodate, you know, if you have a 100-room hotel, you gotta have X number of parking spots.
Well, same as an apartment building.
Or, well, that's one of the things we looked at with Kansas State, and you get into more higher density, then there's no way to do it without a parking garage.
Yep.
So,
But that's a secondary use.
Jeremy, you asked the question as to why do we have parking garages here? Can you explain why you questioned that a little bit?
I mean, it's just unusual for a small town like Red Lodge to actually have that in there, because what are the chances that somebody actually proposes something like that? But I mean, if you want to put it in there, it's fine. I was just curious more than anything else why it was there. Because typically I have not seen that specific of a use in, you know, in small town zoning. So, I mean, I don't think it's an issue. It's not an issue having it in there. I was just curious more than anything else.
And to be fair, you know, when people talk about how crowded we are all summer long, the reality is if you drive 2 blocks south on Broadway, it's empty.
Yeah.
There's plenty of parking.
Yep.
It's
You're
just,
not gonna go to
it's
Parkway
just,
right
but I
away.
wanna walk less than a block to get there.
Yeah.
so, I mean, our busiest times are 4th of July for the parade, and that creates a parking problem because of the parade route, and the
Yeah.
Christmas stroll, when Broadway's also closed, and so you end up with a lot of ancillary parking, and,
And Harley.
you know, but I mean, to Jeremy's point, I don't think, you know, one of the parking companies is gonna wanna put a garage in Red Lodge for any purpose. If we did it, it would probably have to be, you know, municipally owned or operated. And I don't know that that's something that the
What is
city-
that, are gonna be a secondary use for somebody else?
Yeah,
What is Tom Coon, who has a parking lot just down the street here?
oh, yeah.
What if he decides to go up 3 stories?
Well, just under 40 feet.
I don't think that, it would all be used up with ramps, there wouldn't be any actual parking.
Yeah, I don't know how they get to the other, you know,
Yeah.
it's sort of like that one that sells the cars, you just drive in and it goes up.
I'm still waiting for you guys to make it so we can't build a 1-story cottage right there.
Yep.
Sue?
The
I'm-
Theatorium used to be a parking garage.
What is?
The Theatorium.
Yep.
Used to be a parking garage?
Yep. And I know there's been conversation of bringing it back to a parking garage.
Mhm.
So again, I think the reason it's in the zoning is that this has been an ongoing conversation of the parking dilemma in Red Lodge for as long as I've lived here.
Susan just answered it. Why is it in there? Because we used to have one, and that's how we built our zoning.
Oh, there you go.
No,
that's not.
that's not the reason. The reason is more along what Chelsea was alluding to, was parking downtown has been a kind of an issue,
Ongoing issue.
ongoing issue, and that's why it's here, and that's why it's only in the C4.
Well, it's a more efficient use of space than a large parking lot,
Agreed.
you know,
I'd rather have it stacked and pretty,
I would too.
yeah.
and I don't have an issue with it being in C1, or south and north either.
Yep.
I think it could fit with what the goals of our growth policy and Main Street program are talking about. I think it's a place where we actually do have space to accomplish it, and I think you can make it really attractive.
So you just expand it beyond where it is in one place and make it 3, what you're saying.
Yeah,
How do you feel about that, the community entrance?
Well, again, it's gonna depend on, I mean, I would rather see a parking structure maybe in the community entrance, but not right on 212,
No,
no,
you know, offset
yeah,
back, but, I guess, but I think the other thing we need to think about is height. We don't want, we want the height of a structure to be comparable with the surrounding buildings and not all of a sudden stick up. I don't think it has a place on Broadway.
We have that
Yeah.
annotated in our zoning ordinance.
What's that?
We do have something in the zoning ordinance that says you can't have a parking lot that's facing Broadway, although we have one, it was there years ago, but it's not, it's supposed to have something in between the parking lot and Broadway. And of course, we haven't fully explored, the benefits of angle parking.
Mm-hmm. There's a parking garage at MSU Building that's right on Polly, but most people don't notice it because it's burned and it's not very tall, but it, they don't have to be ugly,
Exactly.
blocky structures, but,
No, they can be beautiful, they can be functional, they can have, again, retail, they can have business, it can be multi-use. And that's exactly all things that we've had conversations about in our community entrances.
So there's actually one in Helena on Last Chance Gulch on the Walking Mall that
Yep.
the parking is on the ground floor, and it's a parking garage. And then up above that, I believe there's 2 floors above that of residential sitting on top of the parking garage. So it's parking on that bottom level, but then it's another use over the top of that parking. So, I mean, that could be another example of a parking garage use.
The entrance is that.
Yeah.
But then actually that garage is gonna be used by the residents in the the 2 floors above. That's not what I would call a parking garage.
That's true.
Well, the one in Helena is open. It's a public garage. Anybody can park in it.
If it's convenient for them.
Yeah. But they don't
And I
wanna
bet
walk.
you they could get memberships too, or not memberships, but
So the question is, do we wanna make it conditional on C3 North and South?
yes.
I think so.
Sue?
How about C1? Dave brought up Roosevelt.
Yeah,
Center.
I'm good with all the commercial, honestly.
I think, where my opinion is concerned, that you would probably prefer that I fit this one out, because I've done a whole lot of studying and reading in books of people that, are very clear and documented about how the world has way too many parking places. And they've got instances where they've done, overhead pictures of what a parking lot looked like each day of the year or each week of the year. And the only time it's full is on the day before Christmas.
Yep.
Or on Black Friday. And the rest of the time it's totally empty, and you've wasted all that concrete and you've got all this extra runoff. So if there are other alternatives, like enhancing the walkability, or using something like, an angle parking, you'd save all kinds of money, and it would be better for the health of the people that are walking, and it would help to decrease the amount of runoff you have. So I wouldn't go yelling and screaming if somebody added a parking lot, but I wouldn't want to promote it either.
Harry?
I guess it should be in all commercial. Each one. I don't know if anybody's gonna build anything in C2, but
John? Same, everything's got to have, commercial condition.
conditional, yeah.
Yeah.
Sandy?
Okay. I just know that we've been looking for years for doing this downtown, to enhance the shopping downtown, for the walkability for older people. People with the money, because they're not supporting children.
I didn't have any.
So we're proposing C1, C3 North and South, and C4. as conditional
Yeah, all the C1 through 4.
with the skip of C2.
I mean, I honestly just see C2 going away here soon, but that's.
Yeah.
I guess we could do C2.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know about C2. That's
It's such a small area.
it is. It's a weird area.
C2.
What are you gonna do with me?
And you do.
Okay, well, what are you gonna do with me? Put me in 3? Okay,
But you,
Good spot to be.
saying. Just asking.
I'm also in C3.
Tom, I can do away with you.
I did too.
I gotta.
When she started talking about the
Uh-huh.
cannery, it's like, gee, that's not very big. See, this would probably be a decent spot for it.
Chelsea, you're all commercial?
All commercial, yeah.
That's the consensus, Jeremy, it's conditional uses in all the commercial districts.
Okay,
I think my caveat is there that we do a good job in defining what the conditions are gonna be, that'll be allowed in.
A lot of conditions.
All right.
I think airport's easy.
Yeah, hotel too.
Yeah, that brings up another point. There are a lot of tourist-type towns that will have a big parking lot somewhere, but it's out of the commercial district entirely, and they have shuttles or special walking paths to get downtown.
And again, I think that there's a great complement of multiple ways that you can do it. And I think a big part of it is scale and location near each other, and then what kind of pieces do you require with that, with green space and trail space and coverings. And again, I love the idea of a covered parking garage that's maybe 2 stories that has literally a green space park on top that's super good for the environment, and at the same time, it's beautiful.
Or solar panels.
Yeah, or solar panels, or both.
Well, I just have, well, I agree with what Susan just said, but, you know, we also have to look at, you know, for instance, if someone wanted to build a hotel in C3 North, and, I mean, our parking, we require X number of spaces based on the size of the building. And as far as, you know, land preservation, it makes more sense to put a garage in than it does a parking lot. And I don't think we have any provision for that in our current.
And I would rather see it, you can even go underground with it.
You can go, yeah, no, you know, it doesn't have to be above ground.
Not in this town.
Yeah.
No,
Good luck.
water table's a little high.
That and
Floating boats.
Sporadic, really. We'll just put it in old mining systems, fine.
Jeremy, you know, to Perry's question about the hotel, that part of the proposal would be to do parking within the structure itself, or part of that wouldn't necessarily fit under this category. It'd be like an ancillary use to the hotel, right? It wouldn't, or say an apartment complex. That's not the same thing as what we're talking about here for parking garage. That's strictly a single-use commercial.
I think what we want to make sure of when we define things is that we have this parking garage is the primary use, right? So what we're saying here is this the primary use of the property? I think what you're talking about is parking as an accessory use. And so
Right.
just making sure that we identify that parking in that it's accessory to a primary use such as a hotel or an apartment complex. It's not required for this, right? It doesn't have to meet these requirements.
Yeah, I guess, my only other comment then is who's going to come into town and invest in, buy a parcel to build a parking garage?
And again, kind of going back to the multi-use factor to where it's like, okay, you have a 3-story parking garage, and on that main level, the storefronts in the front, so you have these condos that you now can rent out or sell, and then have parking as well, and the parking is where you're making your easy, what would you call that, income, passive income, to where someone's putting in a ticket, taking out a ticket, putting in a card, taking out a card, fairly passive income, and then also making rental up front. I mean, it's not super functional for our town right now, but again, forward thinking, when someone does wanna do that, cause it's not outside of the question, there's ways to do that and do it profitable, like, it's,
They, in Breckenridge, Colorado, they had a lot of capacity on the mountain and not enough parking for skiers.
that's
The
every
first-
area, man.
They were one of the first ski areas in Colorado to build a parking garage downtown.
Yep.
And they shuttle people from the parking garage up to the mountain, and so, you know, Red Lodge Mountain might be the first place in Red Lodge to build, because we have about 4 to 5 times the capacity of skiers up on the mountain than we have parking for.
Oh, yeah, as we've seen.
Mammoth just brought a chair down into town.
Yeah.
I know a lot of places are.
Yeah, a
Well,
lot of people do the gondola.
It's,
Avon's done it, Beaver Creek's done it.
what's that?
I mean, it's all over Colorado. It's where they're doing it in Colorado, because they have to.
It's, 7:25, so I guess we'll kind of wrap it up here, Jeremy. Like, our next, where will we start on next? I guess what,
Airport.
airport?
We'll have a couple easy ones before.
No, we don't want an airport. We should
Get rid of it. Put it in the county.
We don't wanna hear that.
It's three-flank crash.
Don't feed the trolls.
So is anybody left online?
There, you have somebody online, you didn't ask for public comment yet, I'll watch to see if everybody raises a hand if you do.
All right, next on the agenda is any public comment for items not on the agenda. And there's nobody in the room, so anybody online?
I'm online, but there's no comments. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So written correspondence, staff communication and updates?
Hearing none,
Hearing none.
there's no staff.
Anything, Jeremy, coming down the pike that you know of?
Not that I can think of. We just what Dave indicated, we sent out comments to the county on that minor subdivision. Other than that, we haven't received any applications or any pre-apps. Well, we do have possibly an annexation thing coming and maybe a subdivision, but it's been in talks for a year and nothing's happened yet. So it still could be some time before we see anything on it.
All right. Barry, you have anything to add?
No, thank you, I was very pleased as I was listening to the discussion, I like the group we've got.
So our next meeting's December 10th, and that's it for the year?
Yeah, next meeting is December 10th, and we'll continue with
Not
the
counting
zoning.
your special meeting on the 2nd.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Special meeting on the 2nd here at 5:30. And that will be a joint meeting between City Council, Planning Board, and the Urban Renewal Agency.
And Jeremy, just confirm, weather permitting, you're planning on being here in person for that one and remote if weather gets in the way, correct?
That is my plan, yes. Yep. I've got it on my schedule to be there, but we'll see what weather and roads look like, so.
All right, seeing nobody's in the audience, adjourned.
We didn't get a lot done, but we got a lot within the ones that